Millions of people walk every single day. They walk in the morning. They walk after dinner. They walk because they believe it is the healthiest, safest way to lose belly fat. And yet, for many of them, something never changes. Their visceral fat stays exactly where it is. This leads to a quiet frustration that most people never say out loud. If walking is supposed to burn fat, why does nothing seem to happen? Here is the uncomfortable truth. Walking does not start burning visceral fat the moment you begin moving. Not after the first step, not after 5 minutes, and often not even after 10. Visceral fat does not respond to effort alone. It responds to a specific biological decision made deep inside your body. There is a precise internal moment when your metabolism shifts. A moment when your body finally decides it is safe enough to release its deepest energy reserves. Most people never reach that moment. Not because they are lazy, not because they are doing something wrong, but because they stop walking just before their body flips the real fat-burning switch. This moment is silent. There is no burn, no sudden surge of energy, no obvious signal telling you it has begun. But once you understand when it happens and why it happens, walking is no longer guesswork. It becomes a tool that works with your biology instead of against it. And in this video, you are going to learn exactly when that moment occurs. To understand why that moment matters, you first need to understand what visceral fat actually is. Visceral fat is not the soft layer you can pinch under your skin. It sits much deeper, wrapped around your vital organs, your liver, your intestines, your kidneys. And unlike subcutaneous fat, visceral fat is not passive. It behaves more like a living organ. It sends signals. It receives signals. And those signals quietly influence how your entire metabolism works. Visceral fat releases inflammatory molecules into the bloodstream. Over time, these signals create a state of low-grade chronic inflammation. Not the kind you feel immediately, but the kind that slowly interferes with blood vessels, heart function, liver metabolism, and immune balance. At the same time, visceral fat reduces insulin sensitivity. Insulin is the hormone that allows glucose to enter your cells and be used as energy. When visceral fat accumulates, cells begin to ignore that signal. Blood sugar stays higher, the pancreas works harder, and metabolic stress increases, even in people who do not look overweight. This is why someone can appear lean on the outside, yet carries serious metabolic risk on the inside. There is another critical detail most people never hear. Visceral fat communicates directly with the liver. Everything it releases flows straight through the portal vein. That means the liver receives these signals first. In response, the liver begins to store more fat, produce more glucose, and shift the body toward long-term metabolic imbalance. So when we talk about visceral fat, we are not talking about appearance. We are talking about a misfiring control system inside the body. And because visceral fat plays such a powerful role, the body does not treat it casually. It protects it. It only allows visceral fat to be used when internal conditions signal safety and stability. This is why the timing of fat burning matters far more than most people realize. Once you understand how powerful visceral fat is, the next question becomes unavoidable. Why is it so hard to burn? The answer is not motivation. It is not discipline, and it is not effort. From an evolutionary perspective, visceral fat is not excess. It is insurance. It sits close to vital organs for a reason. In times of uncertainty, illness, or threat, this fat acts as a protected energy reserve. Because of that, your body does not release it easily. The key signal that determines whether visceral fat stays locked or becomes accessible is stress. When your body senses stress, cortisol rises. Cortisol is not a villain. It is a survival hormone. But elevated cortisol sends a clear message. Conditions are not safe. Energy must be conserved. Deep reserves must be protected. In this state, the body prioritizes glucose. It chooses the fastest, most reliable fuel available. Fat oxidation slows. Visceral fat remains untouched. This explains a paradox many people experience. The harder they push, the more intense the workout, the more stubborn their belly fat seems to become. High intensity creates urgency. Urgency activates the sympathetic nervous system, and that system is designed for survival, not long-term fat release. So instead of accessing visceral fat, the body doubles down on protection. This is why effort alone is not enough. To influence visceral fat, the body must receive a different message. Not danger, not urgency, but stability. Balanced hormones, reliable oxygen delivery, a nervous system that is no longer on alert. Only under those conditions does the body even consider using visceral fat as fuel. This is the critical misunderstanding most people are never taught. Visceral fat does not respond to surface-level effort. It responds to the internal biological environment, and this is where walking begins to reveal its true power. Not because it is intense, but because it creates the conditions your body has been waiting for. So what actually happens when you start walking? Most people assume fat burning begins right away. It does not. The moment you take your first steps, your body chooses speed over efficiency. It activates the fastest energy system it has, stored ATP already inside your muscle cells. This energy is immediate, and it is extremely limited. Its only job is to get you moving. Within moments, your body shifts again. Now it turns to glucose. Glucose from the bloodstream. Glycogen stored inside your muscles. Your heart rate rises. Your breathing becomes quicker. Movement starts to feel like exercise. But at this stage, fat is still not the priority. From the body's perspective, this makes perfect sense. Glucose is easy to access. It delivers energy quickly, and it does not require complex processing. Fat, especially visceral fat, is different. Fat oxidation is slower. It depends on steady oxygen delivery. It requires coordinated mitochondrial activity, and it only happens when the nervous system is calm enough to allow it. During the early minutes of walking, your body is still assessing demand. Is this movement temporary? Is more effort coming? Is the environment stable? As long as those questions remain unanswered, the body stays cautious. This is why the first 5 or 10 minutes can feel strangely unrewarding. You are moving, you are doing the right thing, but nothing dramatic seems to happen. Many people misread this phase. They assume walking is ineffective. They assume they need to go faster or push harder. In reality, this phase is not failure, it is preparation. Like warming up a complex system, your body needs time to synchronize breathing, circulation, and energy demand. Only after this internal coordination begins can deeper metabolic pathways come online, and that is when everything starts to change. After those early minutes that feel uneventful, something quiet begins to shift. There is no signal, no alarm, no sudden burst of effort, but inside your body, conditions are changing. Your breathing settles into a rhythm, oxygen delivery becomes steady, energy demand stops rising and begins to level out. This is the moment your nervous system starts to relax. The body no longer feels urgency. It no longer prepares for escalation. Instead, it senses continuity, and that single perception changes everything. At this point, your metabolism approaches a critical threshold. Exercise physiology calls it the metabolic crossover. This is where fuel preference begins to shift. Glucose is no longer the dominant source. Fat quietly starts to take its place. Inside your cells, Mitochondria respond immediately. They begin pulling fatty acids into their pathways. Beta oxidation increases. ATP production becomes slower but steadier. This is not a backup system turning on. It is a strategic transition. Movement starts to feel smoother, not harder, but easier. Many people mistake this for getting used to the walk. In reality, it is fuel efficiency improving, and only after this machinery is fully engaged does visceral fat begin to contribute. Visceral fat requires deeper mitochondrial involvement. It requires a favorable hormonal environment. And it requires stability. When those conditions are finally met, the body stops defending its deepest reserves. It does not happen with force. It happens with permission. This is why the moment is so often missed. There is no dramatic sensation to chase, nothing that feels like effort paying off, and this is also why so many people stop walking right before fat burning actually begins. Once you understand this invisible transition, walking changes completely. It is no longer about starting strong. It is about staying long enough for your biology to say yes. The most surprising thing about this metabolic shift is that your body does not announce it. There is no clear signal saying, "Now fat burning has started." But that does not mean there are no signs. Your body always communicates. You just have to know where to listen. The most reliable external indicator is heart rate. When your heart rate rises too little, the metabolic signal stays weak. The body does not yet require a sustained fuel source. When your heart rate rises too much, stress hormones take over. Cortisol increases, and the body returns to glucose. Between those two extremes is a narrow but powerful zone, a moderate heart rate, high enough to demand steady energy, low enough to remain calm. In this range, breathing changes first. It becomes deeper, slower, more controlled. You can still speak in full sentences, not effortlessly, but comfortably. Your steps fall into a rhythm. You stop adjusting your pace. Movement no longer feels forced. Many people describe this as finding their flow. This sensation is not psychological. It is physiological. Your nervous system has shifted from vigilance to coordination. Oxygen delivery improves. Mitochondrial efficiency rises. Fat oxidation becomes sustainable. And this is the key difference. Fat burning is no longer something that briefly turns on and off. It becomes the background process supporting every step you take. This is why devices are optional. You do not need numbers to feel this state. Your breath, your rhythm, your sense of ease. These are the signals your body uses to tell you the threshold has been crossed. Once you have crossed the threshold, time begins to matter in a very different way. This is where most people misunderstand walking. They compare 20 minutes to 40 minutes, as if the difference were just calories. It is not. The real difference is how long your body stays inside the fat-burning state. For many people, the first 10 to 15 minutes are simply preparation. Energy systems are switching. Breathing is settling. The nervous system is still calibrating. Only after that does the steady state begin. This is the metabolic window where everything aligns. Heart rate stabilizes. Oxygen delivery remains consistent. Fat oxidation runs smoothly in the background. Inside this window, each minute matters more than the ones before it. Not because effort increases, but because efficiency does. This explains a common experience. Walking often feels easier the longer you continue. Your pace feels sustainable. Fatigue stops escalating. This is not your body getting stronger mid-walk. It is your body switching fuels. Fat delivers energy slowly but reliably. And once fat becomes the primary source, movement no longer depends on constant nervous system stimulation. This is why a longer walk produces results that a shorter walk cannot replicate, even at the same pace. Not because you tried harder, but because you stayed long enough for biology to do its work. When people quit early, they leave the most valuable part untouched. Understanding this reframes walking completely. The question is no longer, how fast should I go, or how many steps should I take? The better question is, how long can I remain in this steady metabolic state? That is where change actually happens. What happens next is something most people overlook. Walking does not only work within a single session, it changes how your body responds over time. When you walk consistently, your body stops treating movement as a stressor. It begins to anticipate it. Mitochondria become more numerous. They become more efficient at using fat. This means the shift into fat burning happens sooner. Hormones begin to stabilize. Insulin becomes easier to manage. Cortisol stops rising at the first sign of effort. At the same time, circulation improves. Capillaries deliver oxygen and fatty acids more effectively. The metabolic system becomes better coordinated. The result is subtle but powerful. The next time you walk, you do not start from zero. Breathing settles earlier. Heart rate stabilizes faster. The steady state arrives with less resistance. What once took 20 minutes may now take 10. This is the advantage of consistency over perfection. Not every walk needs ideal posture. Not every session needs perfect pacing. What matters is repetition. With each walk, your body learns that movement is safe, and when the body feels safe, it stops protecting visceral fat. This is the final realization. Your body was never working against you. It was protecting you the only way it knew how. Visceral fat is not stubborn. It is cautious. You do not need to push harder. You do not need to move faster. You need to move often enough and long enough for your biology to trust the process. When that trust is built, the change you have been chasing begins to happen quietly, one steady step at a time.